Hi there. Tonight, we begin a story that might feel uncomfortably close to home. It's about family, but not the kind that makes holiday cards and potluck dinners. It's about the kind of family that smiles in public, while slowly erasing you behind closed doors. You might think you'd see it coming, but sometimes the people who claim to take care of you are the same ones planning to take everything from you. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what we do here. And while you're here, leave a comment with your city and local time. I love seeing where these stories are traveling. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. I hadn't been to Seafront Horizon in nearly 2 years. The last time I walked those marble floors, I was escorted by the head architect and 3 shareholders. That day, they'd addressed me as Miss Armstrong. But today I arrived as Grandma Helen, wearing orthopedic sandals, a wide-brim hat, and an old canvas tote with "World's Best Nana" printed across it in fading red. Exactly as they wanted me to look. My son Daniel and his wife Kendra had invited me, though. Invited is generous. It was more of a, we're all going to the beach this weekend, and we've already booked the room for you, so don't make things complicated. They called it a gift. Kendra made a point to say she'd be managing everything, so I didn't have to worry my little head. I smiled when she said it, didn't blink, didn't flinch, but somewhere inside a very old door creaked open. The hotel looked the same. My name wasn't on the signage. That was intentional. The Armstrong group preferred subtlety, discretion, legacy in the background. But I knew the chandeliers. I recognized the scent of the lobby, ilang ilang, and white tea. And when the woman at the front desk looked up and smiled at me without recognition, it was almost poetic. "Welcome to Seafront Horizon," she said. "Name on the reservation." "Helen Armstrong," I replied softly. She typed, paused. "Oh, you're in the Coastal Garden Suite. One of our best. Booked under your son, Daniel Armstrong." Of course, I could have corrected her. Could have told her the room she called best was one I'd personally redesigned 3 years ago after firing the previous design team for thinking coastal meant seashells glued to everything. But I didn't. Instead, I thanked her and followed the bellhop. Daniel met me in the hallway. "Hey, Mom," he said, taking the tote off my shoulder before I could say a word. "You made it. How was the shuttle from the airport? Not too hard on your knees." "The knees are still attached," I said. "So I suppose it was fine." He laughed. "You're funny." Kendra appeared behind him in a wide-leg linen jumpsuit and mirrored sunglasses despite being indoors. She air-kissed both sides of my face. "So glad you're here," she said with all the sincerity of a voicemail prompt. "We thought it would be good for you to be somewhere nice for a change." My suite was lovely. Oversized bed, ocean view, organic fruit on the table. The card read, "Welcome Helen, courtesy of Daniel and Kendra." I almost laughed. Kendra launched into the itinerary spa appointments, a wine and wisdom class she wanted me to attend. It'll be good for you to talk to other women your age, and of course dinner at the rooftop bistro where she had a few surprise guests joining. I nodded through it all. Daniel said something about Eli and Chloe, my grandkids, joining us later in the weekend. Chloe was flying in from college. Eli had practice but would be there by Sunday. I asked about Noah. "Oh, he's staying with a friend," Kendra said breezily. "Too noisy for someone his age. Besides, you two always bond better one-on-one, don't you?" I didn't answer. Noah was the only one who still called me just to say hi. The only one who asked if I was sleeping well. Who remembered how I took my tea. He hadn't been invited. I unpacked slowly after they left. Not because I was tired, but because I needed time to think. There were notes in the bathroom, cheesy quotes like, "Relax, you've earned this." I had. Just not in the way they meant. That evening at dinner, Kendra turned on the charm like it was a switch. "Don't you just love the way they plate the shrimp here?" she gushed. "It's like edible art. I bet you don't get this kind of experience at home." Daniel nodded. We wanted to spoil you, Mom. You deserve it. And you'll sleep so well tonight, Kendra added, reaching across the table to pat my hand. Luxury linens, no drafty windows, no creaky floors. It sounded like kindness, but it landed like condescension. I smiled, ate one shrimp, and said nothing. Kendra excused herself halfway through dessert to powder her nose. Daniel leaned in. She's been working hard to plan this weekend, he said quietly. Really wants to make things right between you two. I didn't know things were wrong. He hesitated. It's just, you've been a little distant. Distant, I repeated. Yes. You don't come over as much. Don't call. You stopped sending those grocery gift cards. I sipped my water. I figured you didn't need them anymore. You've been spending so much on vacations. Daniel looked down at his napkin. Kendra booked those. Of course. There was a long pause. Then I said, you know, I've been here before. He looked up. You've stayed here? I've owned here. He blinked, confused. What? But before I could answer, Kendra returned. Bright smile. Lipstick refreshed. Everything okay? She asked. I nodded. Everything's just beginning. I didn't sleep much that night. It wasn't the mattress. Those were custom memory foam, top of the line. It wasn't the air conditioning or the sound of the waves or the light pollution from the infinity pool. It was memory. It came back in waves, same as the tide outside. The first boardroom meeting. The stress of the pre-opening inspections. The morning we launched the first brunch menu, and I personally rejected the font choice because it made the crab cakes look untrustworthy. Seafront Horizon had been my third and final resort build. Not the most lucrative, but the most personal. It was my quiet triumph, my one more thing before I disappear. I built it to be graceful, tasteful. Exactly what Kendra and Daniel now believed only they could give me. Funny, isn't it, to sit like a ghost in the house you built with your own hands and be told you're lucky just to be invited. Breakfast the next morning was served in the garden courtyard. I arrived early, not because I couldn't sleep, but because I wanted to see the staff before the script began. Rachel, the morning shift manager, greeted me at the hostess stand. She was young, maybe late 20s, smart eyes, shoulders pulled back like she had something to prove. Good morning, Miss Armstrong, she said brightly. Table for 3? I smiled. Yes, but if you have a moment, I'd like to speak with you privately. No urgency. She blinked a professional smile, unwavering, but nodded. Of course, right this way. She led me to a corner table in the sun. Would you like a coffee to start? She asked. Black. And one for yourself if you're able. She hesitated. Are you? Tell Frank Delaney, I said quietly, that Helen is back. He'll know what that means. She stared at me for a half second longer than polite, then turned and walked briskly back inside. I stirred my coffee in slow circles, watching the sunlight hit the silver spoon just right. Daniel and Kendra arrived late. Kendra wore a wide straw hat and a look of theatrical exhaustion. Sorry, she sighed, sitting down heavily. The sheets were so soft, I didn't want to get up. Luxury is exhausting, don't you think? I think it reveals people, I replied. Daniel coughed into his napkin. The waiter arrived, Carlos, I remembered. He'd been a server here since opening week. Still had that same polite, mischievous air. He poured water without comment, no sign of recognition. Good, we ordered. Kendra, ever the authority on what's best on the menu, insisted I get the smoked salmon tartine because it's light and easy on older digestion. I got the steak and eggs. Halfway through the meal, Rachel returned. She didn't look at me, but she handed me a small slip of paper with quiet elegance, as if it were the check. I unfolded it under the table. Mr. Delaney has cleared a private meeting for 2 p.m. Conference room B. Perfect. After breakfast, Kendra suggested I take a little walk while she and Daniel went to check out the spa facilities. I'm sure they expected me to go lie down, maybe read a romance novel and nap in the sunshine. Instead, I changed clothes and made my way to conference room B. It hadn't changed. Still the same cool slate walls, the long wood table, the same dimmable lights, and low white noise hum. Frank Delaney entered at exactly 200, carrying a leather folder and a look of restrained confusion. Miss Armstrong, he said, offering his hand. Mr. Delaney,
You're actually here.
I'm here. He sat down across from me, removed his glasses, then leaned back in his chair like a man slowly realizing he might be part of a test. We had no idea, he said. No flag on the system. The reservation was under Daniel's name, and I left it that way. He nodded. How can I help? Quietly, I said, and thoroughly. I explained everything. The dinners, the subtle humiliation, the patronizing tone, the financial manipulation leading up to this generous gift. I told him about the inheritance attempts, the comments about my fading independence, and more than anything, the way my name had been reduced to grandma, my story rewritten as a woman who used to have a nice job back in the day. Frank listened. No interruptions. Just a soft clench in his jaw that told me he'd seen things like this before. I want no drama, I said. I want no press. I want my legacy to remain intact.
Understood.
But I do want to make this a teaching moment. He smiled slightly. Of course. I want a staff memo to go out, reminding all departments that any guests acting with aggression toward elderly patrons are to be noted and reported.
Done.
I want the security camera footage from the rooftop restaurant archived.
He blinked. Was there?
There was. And the family. I'll handle them.
He hesitated. There's something else.
I raised an eyebrow. We received an inquiry, he said, flipping open the leather folder. A week before the reservation. From a woman named Kendra Armstrong. She was asking about transferring guest benefits, VIP tiers, using family status to access owner services. I nodded slowly. She was checking how much she could impersonate before crossing a line.
Exactly.
Flag her, I said, and remove her access permanently. Frank smiled, then not smug, not pleased, just impressed. Yes, ma'am.
I stood.
One last thing I said, reaching into my bag and pulling out a slim envelope. Inside was a copy of a check I'd written the day before. It was large, 6 figures. Set up a new fund, I said. Something for staff families, a scholarship, a childcare stipend. Call it the Quiet Hands Fund. Frank opened the envelope. His eyebrows rose. Anonymous. No, I said, straightening my blouse. Put my name on it. In full, Helen Elizabeth Armstrong.
He stood, extended his hand again. This time his voice was warm. It's good to have you back. It's good to be remembered.
I left the conference room with nothing in my hands, but everything in my control. I passed Rachel at the front desk. She nodded respectfully, nothing more, nothing less. I liked her. Back in the suite, Daniel and Kendra were lounging in robes, sipping lemon water. You look refreshed, Kendra chirped. I am, I said. And tomorrow I'd like us all to have breakfast together again. Of course, Daniel said, surprised. Only this time, I added, I'll be making a few introductions.
They blinked. I smiled.
They'd planned this trip thinking they were leading the narrative, but they'd forgotten one important thing. I wrote the blueprint for this place, and I was about to rewrite the ending. The next morning I woke early, earlier than usual. The kind of early where the light is still unsure of itself, and the hotel halls are quiet enough to hear the click of your own shoes. I made myself tea in the room green no sugar and sat by the window for a while, watching the sun peel itself up from the ocean. There's something about that hour before the world reasserts itself that makes you feel powerful, like you could rewrite anything so long as you start before the noise begins. I got dressed carefully. Navy pantsuit, low heels, minimal jewelry, just the pearl studs Richard bought me the year we signed the seafront deal. I brushed my hair back and looked in the mirror. Not Grandma, not Mom, not Helen from Unit 3B. Helen Elizabeth Armstrong. Ready! They arrived at breakfast 5 minutes late. Kendra looked put together in a gauzy blouse and too much bronzer. Daniel looked wary. Hope we didn't keep you waiting, she said, sitting down like she owned the place. I shook my head. Not at all. We're just waiting on 2 more. Daniel frowned. 2 more. Before I could answer, Rachel appeared. Flawless posture, clipboard in hand. Miss Armstrong, she said, her voice calm and clear. Would you like me to begin introductions now? Kendra blinked. Wait, what's happening? Rachel ignored her. Guests, she began, This is Miss Helen Armstrong, principal owner of Seafront Horizon Resort and founding partner of the Armstrong Hospitality Group.
Dead silence.
Daniel's jaw dropped. Kendra went pale. I folded my napkin. She's also Rachel continued the namesake of our new Quiet Hands Fund, launching this quarter to support staff families with education and care resources. You'll be seeing the plaque installed by the concierge desk later this afternoon. Daniel turned to me stunned. You own this place. Kendra was already halfway to denial. No, I looked this place up months ago. It's under the Horizon Group. There's no mention of... Because I asked them to keep my name out of it, I said, sipping my tea. I built this resort with partners, then took a quiet step back after your father passed. I didn't need applause. I just wanted it to last. Rachel gave a polite nod and returned to the front desk. Silence clung to the table like steam.
You lied, Kendra said.
No, I replied. I withheld.
There's no difference.
There is, I said, setting down my cup. Especially when you've spent 3 days subtly reminding me how much better your life is than mine. Daniel leaned forward, eyes wide. Mom, why didn't you tell us?
Because you were busy telling me who I was.
And I wanted to see how far it would go. Kendra opened her mouth, but I held up a hand.
No more.
Her mouth snapped shut.
You brought me here thinking I'd be dazzled, grateful, humbled even. You mocked me in public. You let Chloe record me behind my back. You made decisions for me instead of with me. And the worst part, I looked directly at Daniel. You called that love.
Daniel's face reddened. I was trying. You were letting your wife measure my worth in linen thread count. Kendra stood up, napkin dropping to the floor. Well, this is just absurd, she snapped. So what now? You're going to punish us for being good hosts? For trying to give you something nice? You tried to own me with something I already built, I said calmly. That's not generosity. That's theft. With garnish. Kendra laughed bitterly. You're twisting things.
Am I?
I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. The security footage, I said, laying it flat. From the rooftop dinner, the incident at the concierge desk, the conversation with Chloe by the pool, all cataloged, all downloaded, all reviewed. Daniel looked sick. You went behind our backs, he said quietly. No, I said. I finally stopped letting you walk all over mine. Kendra reached for the folder, but I pulled it back. You won't need this, I said, because here's what's going to happen.
They froze.
You're going to leave the resort by noon, quietly, without incident. You'll not use my name or this resort for your social pages, your PTA circles, or your friends with beach envy. You'll take your bags, your spa receipts, and whatever is left of your entitlement and go. Kendra gaped. You're kicking us out. No, I said. I'm reclaiming my space. Daniel stood slowly. You're serious. I've never been more. He nodded once. What about Chloe? She's flying in today. She's welcome to stay, I said. She wasn't part of this. Kendra scoffed. She filmed you and then forwarded the clip to me, I said, which considering the context tells me exactly where her loyalties lie. Kendra's face crumpled. This is insane. No, I said. This is clarity. She turned to Daniel. Are you going to say anything? Daniel looked at me, then back at her. Then quietly said, we should pack. She gasped. You're siding with her. I'm choosing truth. She turned to leave, furious. You'll regret this, she spat. I didn't respond. Just watched her heels click away like punctuation marks. Daniel lingered. Mom, he said softly, I didn't mean for this to happen. But it did, I replied. And now you get to decide who you want to be after it. He nodded. Can I call you later? You can try. And then he left too. When they were gone, I sat back in my chair. The breakfast table still held the crumbs of 3 lives that had just been dismantled. And I was still hungry, not for revenge, but for peace. And it was finally on the menu. They left by noon, just like I asked. Kendra made sure to slam the car door hard enough for the valet to wince. Daniel avoided eye contact with everyone. Not because he was angry, but because shame makes you look at your shoes like they might answer for you. I watched them from the corner window of my suite. Not hiding, not spying, just observing. The way you watch a storm finally move offshore. When the valet handed me back the room key card with a sympathetic glance, I simply nodded. "Thank you," I said. "Please reassign the suite to Miss Chloe Armstrong when she arrives this evening." "Yes, ma'am," he said with just a hint of a smile. The hours after were quiet, almost too quiet. I wandered the property alone, retracing steps I hadn't taken in years. Past the pool I once fought to have built wider than code required, because real women swim too, I'd told the architect. Past the herb garden that still grew rosemary like a proud old man. Past the conference room where I'd laid out contracts with sweaty palms and red lipstick. And finally, to the stone bench by the west fountain. I used to sit there at sunset. I sat there again now, and for the first time in a long, long time, I felt rooted. Not useful, not tolerated, not handled, just here. Chloe arrived just after 6. She came alone. No drama, no wheeled luggage army, just a canvas backpack, headphones slung around her neck, and a wary expression that made her look older than her 18 years. She didn't expect me to meet her in the lobby, but I was there leaning against the desk like I used to. She saw me froze and slowly removed her earbuds. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Am I still allowed to be here?" "That depends," I said, "on whether you came to film me again." Her cheeks flushed. "I didn't mean to." "But you did." She looked down. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just thought it was funny. How Kendra kept making fun of you when you weren't around, and then at dinner, I saw your face. I didn't think..." "You did think I interrupted. You just didn't think I mattered." She bit her lip. I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I said, "You forwarded the video to me. Why?" She looked up. "Because she crossed a line." Kendra. My mom. She's always made jokes, but that night..." Chloe paused. "She told the waiter to bring you a plastic wine glass. Said you were too old to hold stemware." I remembered. I hadn't said anything at the time. Just sipped my drink and let the glass dig into my palm like a warning. "I was going to delete the video," Chloe said. But then I thought, no. You should know what people say when you're not around. So I sent it. I didn't expect anything else. "Not even for me to watch it," she shrugged. "I figured if you didn't want to, you'd delete it. Or forward it to Dad and let them fight." I studied her. "Why didn't you?" she asked. "Because I don't play small anymore." Chloe nodded. "Good." We stood in silence. Then I said, "Suite 509 is yours. The spa credits are still active, but no filming, no commentary, and absolutely no making yourself smaller just because someone louder is in the room." Her eyes welled unexpectedly. "Okay," she whispered. I handed her the key card. "Also, breakfast is at 8. You'll sit with me. And you'll order something real. Not just fruit and a sigh." She laughed. "Got it." That night I sat on my private balcony with a glass of wine, real glass, and watched the stars come out. No family plan. No carefully planned treats for Grandma. No one peeking over my shoulder to see if I was confused or tired or still useful. Just me. A sky full of stars, and the ghost of a life I used to live. Finally quiet. The next morning I received a text, unknown number. "I hope you're satisfied. You embarrassed us, humiliated your son. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Don't worry, we won't ask for anything else. Enjoy your tower." I stared at the message for exactly 12 seconds, then blocked the number. No reply. Because sometimes the best response is the absence of reaction. Sometimes silence is a closing door. Chloe joined me at breakfast. She ordered the steak and eggs. We didn't talk about her parents. Instead, she told me about her art professor, about how she wanted to study environmental design, about how she'd always thought I was just a retired teacher, that no one ever told her about my businesses or my name. I didn't correct her. Instead, I told her something else. That name on the building, I didn't need it to remember who I was. I just needed one person to stop pretending I wasn't still her. She looked at me. "I see you," she said softly. And this time, it didn't feel like pity. It felt like truth. By the end of the week, word had spread. Not to the tabloids, thank God, but within the quiet circles that mattered, staff management partners. The people who remembered me not as Grandma Helen, but as Miss Armstrong, the woman who didn't flinch during budget meetings or leave a single cent unaccounted for. And for the first time in years, people stopped speaking to me like I needed help. They started speaking to me like I was help. Even the resort director, Mr. Bryant, sent an invitation for coffee. I declined politely. I wasn't interested in meetings or press releases. I'd said what I needed to say. They could carry it forward. Instead, I spent my remaining 2 days with Chloe. We walked the garden paths. She asked questions about the architecture, the business model, the vision. I answered them all. Not because I needed to impress her, but because she finally asked. On our last night, she said I didn't know any of this. They never talk about you like this. I looked at her then. And how do they talk about me? She hesitated. Like you used to be someone. I nodded slowly. I did, I said. And I still am. She smiled. You think I could do what you did, run something like this? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. As long as you don't marry someone who tries to manage your image more than your dreams. She laughed. That's fair. Before bed, she hugged me. Not quick or performative, but solid, real. And it stayed with me. Like a promise. Back home, I expected the silence to return. And in a way it did. No more calls from Daniel. No emails from Kendra. No Chloe either, not yet. I gave her space. But what filled that silence was new. Peaceful. Purposeful. I had my watercolor group again. My walks with Walter, the neighbor's golden retriever. And slowly, a new idea began to form. Not revenge, not rebranding. Restoration. I reached out to Edward Langley, my longtime attorney. Tell me, I said, what's the legal framework for setting up a fund to protect older adults from family-based financial abuse? He didn't even pause. I thought you'd never ask. We spent 2 weeks drafting the framework. I made calls, wrote checks, called in quiet favors from old colleagues. And then just like that, it existed. The Steel Foundation. Not named after me, not branded with my face, just a name that meant something. Because strength doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's just still. 1 month later, I was asked to speak at a private event for elder rights advocates. I almost said no, but then I thought of the other Helens. The other women sitting at resort tables being called sweetie while their children spend their savings behind their backs. So I said yes. And I stood at the podium, hands calm, voice steady. And I told the truth. I used to think that if I was polite enough, people wouldn't erase me. That if I stayed helpful, they wouldn't forget who I was. I was wrong. People will forget. Sometimes on purpose. Especially when your usefulness fades and your silence is easy to weaponize. But I'm not here for them anymore. I'm here for us. For the women who gave up their names, their bank accounts, and their bedrooms so someone else could feel more powerful. For the ones who raised children who forgot what grace looked like. For the ones who stopped speaking because no one listened, and then forgot how loud their voice could be. We are still here, and we are not done yet. When I stepped down from that stage, 3 women hugged me with tears in their eyes. One whispered, I thought it was just me, and that alone made the speech worth it. Then one ordinary Tuesday, I received a letter. Handwritten, no return address. But I knew the handwriting, Daniel's. Mom, it's been 2 months. I don't blame you for not responding. I wouldn't either. Kendra and I are separated now. She says it's temporary. I'm not so sure. I'm seeing a counselor. Not to win you back, just to try to figure out how I let it all get this far. Chloe told me what you said to her. She said you believe I have a choice in who I want to be after this. I don't know if I do, but I'm trying to find out. I miss you. I miss calling you about things that don't matter. If there's ever a time you're willing to talk, I'll be here. Love, Daniel. I folded the letter. Didn't cry, didn't call, but I didn't throw it away either. I tucked it inside a book on my shelf. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe someday. For now, I had a garden to water, a class to teach, and a granddaughter who knew my real name. Spring slid into summer with all the grace of an old friend who knew not to knock. My life became quieter but not empty. I taught a monthly workshop at the community center, Boundaries After 60. Mostly women, a few brave men. We sat in circles, drinking lukewarm coffee and telling the truth in ways we hadn't for decades. One woman, Joyce, 75, sharp as a tack, said, "I used to think being agreeable was a virtue. Now I know it's just an invitation." We all nodded. I didn't speak like an expert. I spoke like someone who had walked barefoot through that fire and lived to repaint the walls. One day after class, Chloe called. Not a text, not a DM. A real call. "Hi, Grandma," she said, voice warm. "Do you have a minute?" "For you," I said. "Always." She was thinking of changing majors. Environmental design's great, but I keep thinking about hospitality. About how people feel when they walk into a place. The architecture of welcome. I smiled. "That's not a minor decision." "I know," she said. "But you did it." I hesitated. "And what do your parents think?" A pause. "Dad says to do what makes me proud of myself. Mom says I'm wasting my tuition." "I see. What do you think?" I leaned back in my chair, gazing at the framed photo on my desk. An old black and white of me standing outside the original Armstrong Inn hard hat on steel behind my eyes. "I think the world could use more places built by women who understand what being invisible feels like." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's what I needed to hear." Daniel wrote again. Not a letter this time, an email. Subject line 1 year later. "Hi, Mom. It's been a full year since the resort. I know that date means more to me than it might to you, but I wanted to mark it. I'm still seeing Dr. Mendel. Still working through things. I realized I spent a lot of time reacting to shame instead of fixing what caused it. Chloe's doing well. She talks about you all the time. I don't expect a reply, but I just wanted you to know I don't make jokes about age anymore. I don't call kindness being soft. And I don't ask anyone for money. Love, Daniel." I read it twice, then once more. Still didn't reply. But I printed it and pinned it inside my closet, next to my pearls, next to the hotel keycard I never returned. Mid-June, a journalist called. She'd heard about the Still Foundation, asked if I'd be willing to do an interview. "I'm not looking for attention," I said. "I'm not offering attention," she replied. "I'm offering legacy." We met at a cafe. She was young, eager, respectful. She didn't ask about Daniel or Kendra. She asked about the design of the gardens, the lighting choices, the decision to use reclaimed wood in the lobby of Seafront Horizon. And then carefully, what would you say to someone who feels erased? I looked at her. I'd say you're only erased when you stop telling the story. She blinked, then smiled. That's going in the article. One Sunday, I found myself sitting on the porch with Chloe. Noah was visiting 2 taller now, voice deeper, but still with the same curiosity in his eyes. He asked if we could plant tomatoes together next time. Real ones, not store tomatoes. The ugly ones that taste good. Absolutely, I said. As he went inside for lemonade, Chloe looked at me. Dad's doing okay, she said. Better than before. Quieter. I nodded. He's not who he was. But I don't think he's trying to be. That's good, I said. Trying to return to who you were is just another form of hiding. She tilted her head. You still haven't called him, have you? No. Do you want to... I paused, then shook my head. Not yet. She nodded. Okay. We sat in silence. And in that moment, I realized something simple and profound. I didn't need a reconciliation to feel whole. I didn't need a neat ending, because I had a full afternoon, a full heart, and a porch that smelled faintly of rosemary and safety. No dramatics, just peace, just stillness. And finally, after all the lies, the losses, the long nights wondering if I mattered, that was enough. By late July, my garden was thriving in ways I hadn't dared hope. Tomatoes the size of softballs. Basil so lush it climbed the trellis like ivy. I even managed to keep the lavender from dying, which in my book qualifies as divine intervention. Every morning started the same tea sunrise and the slow, satisfying walk through rows of green things that asked nothing of me except presence. I liked it more than I expected, watching something grow without being asked to explain it. Life, it turns out, doesn't always need a 5-point plan. Sometimes it just needs watering. Chloe visited often that summer. Not every week, not every day, but enough. Sometimes we'd paint together. Other times we just sat side by side reading. She preferred novels with biting humor and complicated women. I preferred nonfiction written by people who lived long enough to be both bitter and brilliant. She asked questions not just about my past, but about my opinions, my fears, my mistakes. No one had asked me those things in years. One evening, as the sky blushed violet and gold, she asked, "Do you ever wish you'd done it all differently?" I didn't have to think. "No," I said, "but I wish I'd known myself sooner." She nodded. "That's kind of beautiful." "It was expensive," I said, and we both laughed. In August, Daniel showed up on my porch. No call, no warning, just him standing by the gate holding a pie he probably didn't bake, wearing a look that said, "I'll leave if you want." I opened the screen door, didn't speak, just waited. He held out the pie. "Peach, I remembered you used to like it." I took it. Used to. He smiled sheepish. "Still do." "We'll find out." I stepped aside. He walked in. We sat on the porch. He didn't ask to come inside. Didn't ask for anything, really. "I wanted to say thank you," he said. "For Chloe, for the foundation, for being kinder to me than I deserved." I sipped my tea. He exhaled. I've replayed that trip in my mind 100 times. All the ways I could have acted different, should have spoken up, should have seen it all sooner. "But you didn't," I said. "And now you do." He nodded. "I think I wanted your approval more than I wanted your peace. That was my mistake." I looked at him. "You're still my son, Daniel. But I won't trade my peace for a seat at your table again." "I know." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A folded piece of paper. He handed it to me. "I've dissolved the joint accounts. Officially. Everything's in my name or Chloe's. Kendra's lawyer finalized the separation 2 weeks ago. She took the Audi. I kept the debt." "That sounds accurate." He smirked. "It's a fair deal." I unfolded the paper. It was a notarized document confirming everything he said. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because I want you to know I'm not just apologizing anymore. I'm choosing different." I sat with that, then said, "Good." He looked at the garden. "You built all this yourself." I nodded. "Every inch." "It's beautiful." I smiled. "It's mine." Later that evening after he left, I ate a slice of the peach pie. It was too sweet. The crust was a little soggy, but I finished it anyway, because some things aren't perfect. They're just effort, and that's worth honoring too. In September, I received a letter from a woman in Oregon. She'd read about the Still Foundation in a quiet news column and wrote by hand on lined paper with soft, slanted cursive. "Dear Miss Armstrong, I'm 78. My youngest son moved in with me after his divorce. He told me it was temporary. That was 4 years ago. He now controls my bank account and tells me I don't need that much independence. Your story helped me realize I'm not being helped, I'm being handled. I've spoken to a lawyer. He said there's a way out. I'm going to take it. Thank you for reminding me that I still belong to myself. Sincerely, Margaret D." I cried when I read it. Not from sadness, from recognition, because that was me not so long ago. And now I was the voice someone else heard when they thought they'd gone quiet for good. That fall, I expanded the garden, bought 2 more raised beds. Chloe helped install them. Noah painted the edges. We planted late lettuce, autumn squash, and a row of zinnias that made the whole yard look like a watercolor. Every evening, as the sky dimmed and the wind carried just a hint of wood smoke, I stood among the rows and whispered, "You were right to wait, Helen, because I had been all along." Autumn pulled the air tighter. Mornings came with mist. Evenings ended earlier. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was falling behind. I moved slower, but with more certainty. No more hurry, No more explaining. I was 73 now, and that didn't scare me. I knew who I was. And more importantly, so did the people around me. The Steel Foundation grew quietly, just the way I wanted it. We didn't launch with a gala or champagne toast. We started with a laminated poster at the DMV, a hotline manned by volunteers, and a single email inbox where older adults could ask anonymously, "Is this normal?" Some of the stories were heartbreaking. Some were infuriating. All of them were familiar. One man wrote, "My daughter tells me I'm lucky she still talks to me. She says I owe her my pension because she wiped my nose once when I had the flu." Another woman, "My grandson only calls when he needs money. When I told him no, he said I was selfish for someone who'll be dead soon." I laughed. But then I cried. We didn't solve every case, but we listened. And for many, that was the first thing they'd received in years without terms attached. Daniel started attending our local meetings. Not as a speaker, not as a guest of honor, just a man in a folding chair who wanted to listen. He never introduced himself as my son. I let him have that. He volunteered to help seniors set up online banking, showed people how to freeze credit, how to review PayPal activity, how to create passwords no one else could guess. And week by week, something softened in him. He started carrying a small notebook, writing things down. Not because he was forgetful, because he didn't want to forget the cost of pretending you already know everything. Chloe transferred programs. She called to tell me on a rainy Wednesday. "I switched to hospitality management," she said. "They asked me to write a statement about why I changed." "What did you say?" I said, "Because I want to build places where people feel seen." I closed my eyes. She didn't need my approval, but I gave it anyway. In October, I hosted a dinner. Not a grand affair, just 6 people. Folding chairs on the patio, mismatched dishes, butternut squash soup, garlic bread from the bakery 2 blocks over. Daniel brought a pie. This time he made it himself. We laughed. We told stories. No one mentioned age insurance or cholesterol. We were just people, together, sharing warmth. At one point, Daniel got quiet. He looked around the table, then at me. "I spent so much time trying to make sure you stayed taken care of," he said. "I forgot to ask what you actually wanted." "You didn't forget," I said gently. "You never asked." He nodded. "You think we'll ever go back to what we were?" "No," I said, "but maybe we'll go forward to something better." He blinked twice, smiled. Later that week, I received a letter from a foundation donor. A woman named Carol, 79, widowed, no children. She wrote, "I don't have a legacy. No building with my name. No children to tell stories about me. But I'd like to know. My last check helped someone else survive their son's disappointment." I wrote her back personally, told her she did have a legacy, because dignity is contagious, and so is courage. One crisp morning, I went to the post office to ship some of the foundation's welcome kits. As I was leaving, a woman stopped me. "Are you her?" she asked. "The still woman?" I smiled. "That's me." She looked at me for a long time, then said, "Thank you for being louder than I knew how to be." I didn't know what to say. So I took her hand, gently, and we just stood there for a moment. 2 women, 2 stories, same ending. Freedom. That night I walked out to the garden. The zinnias were nearly done. The basil had bolted. The tomatoes had given everything they had to give. And I stood there in the middle of what I'd grown and whispered, "Thank you for coming back to me." Because I hadn't just found my voice. I'd found my home inside myself. And I wasn't leaving again. The days got shorter. It always surprised me, that part, how the light seems to vanish faster after October, like the sky is quietly packing up for winter. But it didn't feel heavy this year. It felt earned. I'd never been afraid of darkness, only of disappearing inside it. But now I knew how to make my own light. The Steel Foundation's work expanded. 1 partnership turned into 3. 1 hotline call turned into hundreds. We were featured in a local news segment. The anchor called me an unlikely crusader for dignity. I laughed when I heard it. Not because she was wrong, but because I'd finally stopped needing someone else to crown me. I didn't want to be anyone's crusader. I just wanted to make sure no one else had to sit through a dinner where they were being erased with a smile. Then in early November, something unexpected happened. I received a voicemail from Kendra. First one in over a year. "Hi, Helen. It's Kendra. I know it's been, well, everything. I won't take your time. I just wanted to say, I heard about the foundation. I read an article someone posted. She paused. I didn't expect to feel anything, but I did. And I guess I just wanted to say, congratulations. That's all." I didn't call her back. But I didn't delete the message either. I played it once, then tucked the phone away. Because some things aren't meant to be reopened, but they can be acknowledged. Daniel stopped by the garden again the week before Thanksgiving. He brought homemade bread, dense and slightly burned, but clearly made with effort. He wore a flannel shirt I hadn't seen in years, said it reminded him of his dad. We sat outside in the cold, wrapped in scarves, sipping coffee. "I got a new job," he said. "Part-time. Working with Elder Tech Access, helping people navigate online systems." I smiled. "That sounds poetic." He chuckled. "Poetic with a pension if I'm lucky." Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small box. "I was going to wait," he said, "but this feels right." Inside was a key. I blinked. "What is this?" "A key to my new apartment," he said. "I want you to know you're welcome. Anytime. Not as a guest, not as someone we're helping, but as you. My mom." I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the box and handed it back. "Daniel," I said softly, "that's beautiful, but I have everything I need." He nodded, no offense taken, I figured. But I added, "Thank you. I mean it." He smiled. "You've changed. So have you." We sat in silence. Just two people, not trying to fix anything, just being there. On Thanksgiving Day, I didn't host. I didn't attend a big table. I didn't carve a turkey or burn a pie or pass a bowl of stuffing to someone who thought I owed them more than a recipe. I went for a walk, alone, through the park, past the empty swings, under the old sycamores. And I stopped at a bench by the duck pond. Same one where I used to sit with Chloe back when she was 5 and thought stale crackers were secret duck snacks. I sat there for a long while, hands in my coat pockets, breath visible in the crisp air. And I whispered more to the wind than anyone. I'm thankful for the version of me I didn't give up on. Because she had been there all along, waiting. That evening, Chloe called. "Noah says hi," she said. "He's stuffing himself with mashed potatoes." "And you?" "I'm hiding on the porch," she whispered. "They're arguing over politics again." I laughed. "Good choice." "I was thinking," she said, "maybe next year we do our own Thanksgiving. Just us. You, me, Noah, Walter. We'll burn the rolls and make boxed mac and cheese and play Scrabble badly." I smiled. "I'd love that." "Good," she said, because I already penciled it in. Later that night, I lit a candle and pulled out an old notebook. Not a journal, not a ledger, just blank pages. I wrote one sentence. "I am not what they forgot. I am what I remembered." Then I closed it, because some chapters don't need long endings, just a soft closing sound. Like a sigh, like a breath, like truth coming to rest. Winter came quiet. No grand storm, no crashing winds, just a slow hush of frost on glass and mornings that stayed darker a little longer. I liked it. Stillness suits me now. I no longer needed motion to feel meaningful. I had learned at last how to sit in my life. The foundation entered its second year in December. We received a grant from a small women's trust based out of Boston. Enough to open a second chapter in another county. Enough to hire 2 part-time advocates. The woman who called to tell me the news said, "We don't usually fund new organizations, but your model was impossible to ignore." I didn't cry. I just said thank you. Then I made myself tea, sat by the window, and watched the neighborhood kids roll a snowball too big to lift. They laughed like the world owed them nothing but joy. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like it might owe me nothing too. And that was okay. On Christmas Eve, Chloe and Noah came over. No gifts, just soup, bread, and stories. Chloe brought me a photo framed and printed in black and white. It was the two of us standing at the garden bed from last summer. I was laughing. She was holding a trowel like a microphone. We looked ridiculous. We looked happy. She set it on the mantel. I thought it was time this house had some proof of joy. She was right. That night, after they left, I sat in my armchair wrapped in an old quilt candle flickering beside me, and I thought about the word that had followed me all year. Still. It started as a whisper. Still here, still rising, still reclaiming. Then it became something more. Still enough to rest. Still enough to know better. Still enough to not explain my worth anymore. I picked up the pendant Chloe gave me and traced the word with my thumb. Still. Yes. New Year's Eve was quiet. I watched the ball drop from my couch. No champagne, just tea and an old movie playing low. At midnight, I whispered, "Thank you." To what I'm not entirely sure, maybe to the version of me that refused to stay buried under politeness. Maybe to the soil. Maybe to the silence that gave me space to begin again. Maybe just to the stars. In January, we published our first foundation report. Page 1 had a quote. Not from a donor, not from me, from one of the women we'd helped. She said, "They kept telling me I was too old to start over, but no one ever told the oak tree not to bloom again in spring." I read that line 10 times. Then I put the report away, because that was it. That was all it ever needed to be. Proof. One morning in February, I went to the resort, just to visit. No announcement, no agenda. Frank greeted me with a hug. Rachel brought me tea without asking how I take it. Carlos offered me my old table. They didn't treat me like royalty. They treated me like I belonged. And maybe that's what legacy really is. Not power, but presence. Not applause, but a place. That evening, I walked along the edge of the property. The tide was high. Waves lapped the stones like they had stories to tell. I listened. I always listen now. And then back in my suite, I opened the sliding glass doors to let the ocean in. I stood barefoot on the cool tile. The wind played with my hair like an old friend, and I whispered just once, "You remembered me." And in the silence that followed, I remembered myself. Not the version in family photos, not the one edited out of thank you speeches. The real one, Helen, still, and always. Let's let the story rest now. Let the ocean grow quiet again. Let the light dim. Let the porch door swing shut. You've walked with me through betrayal, erasure, humiliation, and more importantly, through reclamation. You've seen what happens when someone decides she is no longer content being someone else's side note. You've witnessed the slow, careful work of remembering who we were before the world decided to rewrite us. And now, in this quiet moment, I want you to remember something. You don't owe anyone your silence. Not to keep the peace, not to keep their comfort, not to keep your seat at their table. You are allowed to speak, to leave, to start over. Even at 72, even at 82, even when they say it's too late, especially then. Stillness is not surrender. It's what the earth does before it blooms again. So take a breath. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. The softness of your own voice returning. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are not what they called you. You are what you call back into yourself. Still, loved, whole, here. Good night, friend. You made it home.